Okay, these live systems are very odd, aren't they, at times? I'm just going to go to Designer now. Hopefully I've just done an hour video of going through it and it wasn't even running. So says it all. Symbols and curves. Let's go right back to the start. And I'm just going to use very basic shapes. If you use many of my tutorials, you'll notice I really like starting from some very basic shapes. And I'm just going to quickly check to see I am still running. Yeah, I am. Okay. Got this rectangle. At any point, you can convert it to a curve. So what's a curve? It's basically, it loses its shape property at that point. So if I've got a rectangle, obviously it's not got that many properties. Arrow, donut, there's lots of different tools. They've got lots of properties. But I want to convert this to a curve. So I'm just going to convert to curve and then I can access the nodes. So with the nodes, I can now manipulate the shape. So I can just tweak it. I can just go over here, node tool. So node tool, and you can just go to this point. You can select a point, any of these points. You can select multiple points as well. And you can then drag like that. And you can create different shapes. But you can also add additional things to it. You've got options here to fill it with different designs. So I'm just going to go here to the gradient tool. Now, in this case, it's called the fill tool. I always call it the grade tool. It will always be the gradient tool, but in this designer, it is actually the fill tool. And you can apply it. And you see, as soon as you apply it like that, you'll notice here that it goes to linear. And also you'll notice here you've got a context. You've got a fill. So with a fill, that's what happens. It fills that fill with that gradient. You can also fill the stroke with a gradient or something else. But at this point, you'll notice what happens. Unfortunately, there's no option for the stroke. So it's a really odd feature. To actually access it, you need to go and select one of these shape tools. Select that. And now you'll see the stroke. And you can go and change the width. So I'm just going to increase the width. And I'm going to go with black at this start point. So with this, you've got the gradient field here. You've got the stroke. And now, again, I can go up here, go to the fill tool or gradient tool. And again, it puts it back always to the fill. Always a slightly annoying feature of Designer, but stroke. So with that, go to the stroke. And now you can change that. So linear. And now you can see that stroke has got a gradient. And you can create a variety of different gradients like that. You can drag using this gradient tool. And you can see what happens. It just drags from that position. And that's the current selected stop. That there. And you can change the colour. So if you want to, you can make it red. As long as it's the one that's selected. So you can just change it. You might want it yellow or something else. So you can just do it. Or, real another option, go here to the swatches. With that, you can just go here. You've got gradients. So lots and lots of gradients. You can select some very colourful gradients. Something like that. Very colourful gradient. And again, you can continue to manipulate it. But you can also, again, unfortunately, you have to go back here to the shape. Any of the shape tools. Doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be a rectangle. It can be any of them. Circle, etc. And you'll notice you've got this. And you can expand that out and change that. But you can also decide to have it aligned in a particular way. At the moment, it's aligned by default to be central. So you've got it this side and this side of that actual design, that shape. What you can also do is you can go down here and align it to be inside or outside. And you can see you can just move it backwards and forwards. I'm going to keep it outside, but by default it goes to the center. Also, you've got options here for pressure. And you can go here down to the pressure and you can then tweak that. So you can create some. Now, in Illustrator, you've got width profiles, which I think works slightly better than this. I mean, because unfortunately, you've got save profile and you can just click here, save profile. Well, saving profile means that you just get that one entry there. You can tweak it and create another one. You just go like that, save profile, and you've got that. But unfortunately, when you come back to it later, you'll find those profiles are not actually saved, which is a pity. I wish there was an actual library of profiles you could save, because I create often quite a few ones that I think, you know what, that's pretty good, but you can't save them. You just save them to the document, that's it. Okay, so you've got that. Also, another option is you can click here and you've got these dashes. Now, as soon as you do that, you'll notice you've lost the pressure. Unfortunately, you can't combine pressure with dashes. Slightly odd feature. I do not know why that is the case, but unfortunately, you can't. You can change the width and you can see you've got all these. Now, down the bottom, you've got all your dots and dashes. Dashes and dots, whatever you want to call them. Version 2 has now added this. So version 2, you've got these little sliders. They don't look like sliders, but they are sliders. And you can just go down here and you can just tweak that. Just change it. So 0.4, you can go not 2, 3, 4, but you can also go 0.6, maybe 2.8. You can also bring in some variation, 0.4, 0.7, 1.4, 1. There's also another option here. Now this balance dash pattern is quite a nice feature. When I did a video about this, I think it got hardly any views at all. Obviously, maybe no one's actually interested in balance dash patterns, but you can click here and it just makes it look nicer. But it was actually the #1 point in the Affinity Designer version 2, their additional thing. Obviously, they thought, but it's strange that hardly any interest at all in it. But you've also, before that, you had phase, and you can just use the up and down, and you've got phase there, and you can see as you change it, using the up and down arrows, or just entering a value, 12, say, you can tweak it anyway. But the balance just does it for you nicely, if you want to do it that way. So you've got that design. Now, you may want to save this, and you can save this design, this curve with this stroke. But if you save it to, say, go to File and Export, and you save it to a PDF, you may find the PDF doesn't match what you think. It doesn't save it well. That was hardly some questions about that. People contacted me and said it doesn't seem to save it. Workaround about that is this way. Go to Layer and Expand Stroke. Please put in the comments, maybe there's other ways of doing it, but this is the way I've gone, Expand Stroke. So Expand Stroke. And once you've done that, you'll notice now, of course, as always, with all these panels. Now, before I didn't have all these panels here. Unfortunately, my history panel suddenly went off the middle of the screen, so I had to reset the studio. It's one of those features that you can't reset an actual panel on its own. It will be nice. You have to reset everything if something goes wrong, which is slightly always frustrating. But you can see now I've split it. By using Expand, it's actually split the curve and the other curve. So I've got now these two. And as that, I can manipulate it. So I can just drag it so it's totally separate. Also, it does mean you can add effects to it, which means you can create some. Well, you couldn't do that. If you want to add effects to your stroke, you couldn't do it. There was no feature to add to the stroke like that. So with it separated, you can do it now. So click Effects, and you can go to 3D or Bevel Emboss. Personally, I always find that 3D slightly one of the more frustrating ones because I always feel it should have extrusion. Doesn't have extrusion, that would be just brilliant. Then it would truly be 3D. But you can create a nice visual effect just by changing the radius, as well as soften, etc., as well as profiles. Now you've got profiles here that are saved. But unfortunately, you can't create your own, which would be nice. You can't save your own. So if you've got a nice one you create, there's no right click, save that profile. So you can change that and close. So you've got that sort of design. And again, you can manipulate the curve, change that, and you can duplicate it, maybe do that, hold down the Alt Option key, and create multiple copies. So you've got 3 copies of that design. And of course, they're independent now. You can also rotate it, make it smaller, all those sorts of things. Maybe add a shadow, add effects to that as well. But what you can also do is you can warp these designs. So you can actually go to this design now, and you've got this. This is in version 2. You've got warp. So click here, and you've got mesh. And you can then warp and distort this design. So just stretch it that way, double click there, drag that off. So you can create a variety of different designs simply by just going there and dragging this up and down to create that. At any point, if you want, and you don't want this mesh warp anymore, you've got this web, you've got quad, you've got none, you can always go back to none. but you can also convert it to curves. So click there and it's then converted to a group there, and you've got curves with effects, which you can then manipulate. You can still continue with the node tool. Just go over here and select it, make certain you select it, and drag thing. That 3D effect is still just changing as you change this design. So you can see that 3D effect there. We'll go to this path. Now this is one feature that I would love to see in Affinity Designer. I don't know why they haven't added some effects. So you go here, you've got these parts. I'm just going to select all these. And you've got some actions along here. It would be brilliant if there was some zigzag effects, some wave effects. There's nothing like that. You can break the curve. Well, it split the curve. All it does, it doesn't really split the curve. Slightly odd name. All it does is if you've got a point there and a point there, it just adds a point in the middle, but in between, which is good. Sometimes very useful. And that does enable you to create zigzag-like designs. But it's a bit of a lengthy exercise to do that. But you can see now you've got this curve, you've got this group, and you've got the curves here. And you can, of course, build up all kinds of complex, let's move, let's swatches, don't want to use that anymore, designs there. Well, what you can also do is you can make certain with all this, select all of it, and that's the key thing, you need to select it all, and then right click and group. There's probably, I think, layers as well, you can do that. You've got layer up here, if you go layer, you've also got group as well. But personally, I always right click and group. So it's all grouped. And the reason for that is I want to save it as a symbol. Now, weirdly, because in previous version, I actually had my symbols panel displayed, but because I reset it all, I have to bring it back now. So there it is. Now I've got it as a group, I can create a single symbol. If I had it all as separate entities, different parts, so if I expand this out and I had all just the group, the curve, etc., what would happen? It would generate 5 or 6 symbols, which I don't want. I want a single symbol. So with that selected, I can then go here to layers, the symbols, and create. And there you can see a symbol. Now this has become a symbol now. It changes there. You can see the group, it's become a symbol group. And I can now resize it, move it around, and obviously because I've expanded it, I've broken it all apart in many different ways, it's not actually tweaking or changing the dash design. It would if you resized it normally. Any questions? Oh, no questions. Never can see whether there's any questions or not. Right, so you've got that. What you can then do is you can, of course, duplicate this symbol. You can just simply hold down the Alt or Option key, and you can drag and you can resize it. Now it's independent, that design, so it doesn't, however, if you change anything inside this group, they will change for all of them. So this curve, if I go and select that curve and say I move it now, you can see what happens. That moves there as well in the other symbol. But if I go back to the symbol, and that's the key thing, make certain you select that, drag that around, duplicate it again, resize it, you can rotate it, doesn't matter, it doesn't change the symbol here. That symbol is totally no change at all whatever to that symbol. However, if I actually go here, select any part of that curve and then tweak that, that symbol does change, which is slightly annoying feature if you want to keep that symbol as it was before. There's a plane going over. Always the way, we're on a flight path here, it seems. So this symbol, what would be nice, of course, is to be able to duplicate it. Well, how do you do that? Well, unfortunately, there is no way of duplicating this. Right click, you've got rename and you've got delete symbol. For some weird reason, they left off the duplicate. Very odd missing command. I think that duplicate should be there. Don't know why it isn't. But of course, the workaround is you simply just go over here, you've got your symbol, and just drag it over here, and obviously create it. Let's just make certain you can actually do that symbol, drag it from here, I should say, drag, not from the layers. So you've got this design, make certain you expand it, so convert to curves, so all we, and then it disappears. There's some quirks with symbols, clearly. That is very strange. I have never noticed that before, where it suddenly removes it. But you can, of course, save it again. Obviously, you've got this symbol here. You can then tweak it, and let's just modify it. And again, unfortunately, it changed that. So clearly, duplicate symbol is definitely a feature that's needed in Affinity Designer. So let's just go and select that and delete those. Now, drag that back there. Okay, so once you've got this now, even if you can't duplicate it particularly easily, because as soon as you start changing things, it will actually just refer back to this symbol. That's another feature that's slightly odd. Aha! That's why. There is always a solution. Hold down the Alt Option key again, duplicate it, and detach. So now that has just become a group. That's the solution to it. So it's not connected to that symbol anymore. There's always a way. There is always a way in most things. And now, of course, this group, you can then go here, the group structure, tweak things, change things. So you can just maybe move it around. So you've got a different design. Then you can go here, click create, and now you get symbol. It's a bit of a workaround, but you have to detach it before you can then recreate it as a new symbol. Why there isn't a duplicate, I don't know. Please put in the comments below if you know of a better way of doing that. Okay, so you've got that. You've got this symbol, and you can again see the symbol here, and you can expand it out at any time. But what you can also do is you can use this in Affinity Photo. If you've got Affinity Photo, you can go and use any of the features here in Photo. So File and down to Edit in Photo. If you haven't got Photo, you can't. Probably be disabled, I don't know. Or not even there, I don't know on that one. So Edit in Photo, and obviously it takes a few seconds to start up, 2.1. And then you've got my version there. Let's just drag that. So you can see exactly the same symbol as before. So symbol, and you can expand. Oh, wonder why sometimes if you've got the hand, it sometimes blocks it. It doesn't seem to actually expand out. Don't know why, but it always defaults to the hand. Then you've got all the same group structure here. So say you want this curve, you can always add additional paths as well. So you've got this curve here, it's all part of this symbol. Well, you can always just duplicate it. So it's selected, hold down the Alt Option key. You can see you've got a duplicated design there, and you can resize it. Maybe decide, let's change the fill. So this time, let's go over here. And this is why I keep calling it the gradient tool in Designer, because in Photo, the same icon is actually called gradient tool. So you've got the gradient tool there. In the other one, it's fill. But you can then manipulate it. It's separate from these paths. So the other paths don't change. Only this bit here changes. And you can go to Window, and you've got swatches. And again, go here, gradients, and I've got a variety of different gradients. You can create a nice colourful gradient there. And move that around. Again, use the node tools. Here, node tool there, and you can manipulate that design and create different shapes and much, much more. Okay, so once you've got that, what you can also do is you can add live filter layers to it. So I've got this curve here selected. I can now go to Layer, and I can go down here. Let's just go down to Live Filter Layer, and this is in Photo. So Photo, you can go to Distort, and you've got a variety of different options here. Let's just go for 12. 12 is the most obvious one, but you can see you've got a number. Unfortunately, I haven't got Deform or Mirror. That'd be brilliant if they had that, but you've got 12. Put the panel down there, and you can then drag, and you've got the radius there, so you can manipulate that. And you can see as you change origin point, the actual change of the shape. Now that underlying vector shape is not being changed. It's only purely visually being changed on there. Actual underline is still there. So again, if you close it, and you can close it, and you can see what happens. It's attached to that curve. Expand that out, and you can see it's beneath that. So as long as it's connected to it, you can see it's just below, slightly shifted. So then what you can do, if you want to alter the 12 point, just double click, bring up the panel again, and you can then change origin point and manipulate it again. Also what you can do, right click here, curve, you can duplicate. So you can duplicate that design and then Again, double click there, bring this up and change origin point for that. So you can have 2 or 3, 10 of these twirls associated with each of those curves. And also what you can do, you can add adjustments as well, live adjustments. So everything in this predominantly is live. You can manipulate it in all kinds of different ways. Let's go to this one. So I mean, I could associate it with this curve, but let's just go down to this curve and add a live layer. That's this one, layer, new adjustment layer, and there's a variety of different options. Let's just go for, I don't know, probably go for one that's wrong, but let's go for HSL. So HSL, you can go there and you've got, let's just change the colour. And if I manipulate that, now because I've gone for a grey one, it's not going to be much use. It's always the way, whenever you choose one, but there you can see your live layer. You can move live layers, thankfully, because of course as it's grey, it's not going to be much use. Now that affects all of those layers beneath there. Obviously at this moment, it doesn't do anything because they're grey. But what you can do is you can select it and you can drag it up. And as you see, you can drag it up just there. So if I put it there, then it changes that curve below. That's the one with the gradient. So if I double click that again and I can change that, you can see this colour changes. Just changes there, but it's not affecting anything else. It's not affecting any of these ones either. But now, also another thing is that because it's above that, these curves change, this curve changed. But if I go here and drag it up to here, but this time instead of just putting it above or anything, I just put it inside. So it's now associated with that curve only, that curve design only. Now if I double click now to bring up that, it will change that one, but it will not change that one. Within that group, it will only modify that design. You can see that change there and close it. And likewise, this twirl. This twirl is only associated with that. But also, let's just go here, symbol. Got this symbol. Go to move tool, make sure I select the move tool and resize. Hold down the Alt Option key. I can duplicate the shape. I've got this symbol. I can go here, expand this out, go to this curve, this adjustment, click on that again. I always double click, but you just click on it and you can tweak and change. And you can see because it's a symbol, all those symbols all change. Every single one of those symbols now will have that colour change. That one changes, and that one changes. Because that's just all the way through. And if I expanded it out, you'd be able to see, obviously, all of those. So it can get quite complex. And of course, what you can also do is now go back into Designer. Because the one thing, unfortunately, that Photo doesn't have symbols. Be nice if it did. Anyway, any questions? Let's have a look. No questions. Be nice some questions. But anyway, let's just go back to Designer. Now, the one thing is when you're in Photo and you want to go back to Designer, you can, if you want, go to File and Save As. That's all you need to do, File and Save As. And that will save its file. And then you can reopen it in Designer. But you don't have to do that. You can go here, Edit in Designer. So Edit in Designer. So click there. You're back in Designer now. And you've got exactly the same design as you had. All those features, all those symbols, all those things. And the thing is, as I said, unfortunately, symbols are not available in Photo. I wish they were. I don't know why they haven't added symbols. There's sort of equivalent linked feature that sort of like works with symbols, but they do have a bit of a conflict. It's like warps. Warps don't seem to work very well with symbols. I found that if you use a warp inside a symbol, it doesn't seem to reflect all of the other shapes. But you can see if you break this apart now, you expand this out, you can see this symbol. And it's still here, but it's been updated. It's all the details that have been in that symbol have all been updated. But you can expand it out, and again, you can duplicate it, do all the various things. You can click here, double click, just click, double click, double click. Sometimes it seems to just work on a click, sometimes on a double click. But you get the panel up, and then you can tweak the settings of the twirl. You can see just modify it, and they all get modified. You can see that one modifies as well. Though sometimes there is a bit of a delay. There is a lag. It's not instant. If you've got 500 layers, I suspect it might be a bit of time before it actually updates it. But that might be the case. Also, if you change blend modes, you can go here. You see the blend modes change? They all change as well. Again, fairly instantaneous, but sometimes there is a slight lag. Close that. But this symbol, what you can do, you can also just select all of them. Let's just, now, this is the weird thing sometimes is you have to hold that down and that doesn't want to select it. That one and that one and that one. So all three symbols are selected. You can group those. Now at the moment, because it's symbols, that's not going to work. What you need to do is you need to go to layer and again group. So they're all grouped into one single group. You can resize that and then click create. And then you've got this complex design. And then of course you can still manipulate that. So go over here, symbols, and you can manipulate it obviously indefinitely. Whole range of combinations of these symbols. You can tweak, modify, move things around. And as you do that, you'll notice they move in all the other locations as well. It's a really useful feature. Say you've got type, you've got various things. If you change certain things, they will change in all the other symbols as well. So, I mean, that's what you can do. Let's just do that. So let's just go to symbols. So not just that sort of complex symbol, maybe not very practical ones, but say you've got a symbol that's basically artistic text and you create some word type. So you've got type like that. Could be anything. Again, you can then create that as a symbol as well. So click create. Type it. It's obviously a group. So you've got that symbol there. And then obviously you can delete it and come back later and simply just drag it back over. You've got your word type there. And you can then hold down the Alt Option key, duplicate that type, duplicate that, duplicate that, duplicate that, and so on. And again, you can always resize them. You can also rotate them. All kinds of things. It doesn't matter. It doesn't change the underlying symbol. That's the key thing. Now, as soon as you add, modify the colours, etc., so decide, oh, you know what? That type, that word type there, let's expand this out. Now, you can't double click it. In Illustrator, you can. I would love to see that feature. I don't know why they didn't do it that way, but instead, the only way to do it seems to be to go here. So expand it out, and you've got the word type there. You back to exactly what you got before. And then you can go here. Just go to the artistic text tool again, and you can select it. So select that, and you can say, let's change the colour. Colour, and go for red, and you can see all of them change to red. And of course, you might not just create the word type, a single symbol. You might have, say, a more complex design of 20 or 30 words that you've got that you use like over, but you want them to all be changed when you change one. You think, oh, you don't want to keep coming back and then changing every one individually. So you can create a very complex poster with this sort of design. And you can also tweak other things. So again, you've got that. Let's just go to the artistic text tool. Maybe decide, let's just make sure I select that one, and you can change the size. So maybe go there, 288. And as you do that, you notice, look, you can see all the size change. Maybe make it 500. Something like that. You can create variety. Also, maybe resize that. Rotate that. Now, unfortunately, I'm not rotating the actual text there. Just rotating the whole thing. But you can do that as well. Let's just go and break this down, because there are a variety of different options. Window and text even, maybe not transform. You got character, and you can see you got here lots of variety of different options. Now, unfortunately, one feature that's not in, there would be great if there was a touch type feature. In Illustrator there is, but here there isn't. But you can do various things like slant. Let's just go for slant. So let's select that, so 40. And you can see as soon as you do that, they all change. Maybe decide, you know what, you don't want Arial, but I want Alpine or Aperture. Different sizes, different fonts. You can change it all. They all change. So symbols can be used to create a variety of different designs. And again, you've still got the symbol. And you notice in the symbols panel, they're all updated. Again, if you want to, you have to, of course, detach and all that sort of stuff to create another one, unless there is a duplicate feature. And what you can also do is, of course, within this, you can then add maybe live adjustments. So layer, new adjustment, and you've got here maybe HSL. So let's just go HSL, and you can change the colour. Obviously, you can change the colour of the thing anyway, just by changing the colour thing, but you can add adjustments to it. You can see there, you've now got that adjustment there added to your type. And you can also, if you decide, you can always expand it as well. You don't need to keep it as type. The word's correct, everything's spelt correctly, you can expand it out. So got this word type here, and let's see, expand out type. I'm just going to convert that to a curve. So make certain you select the type, then right click and convert to curves. And that will convert it into nodes. Nodes that you can manipulate, as well as paths you can then move things around. So convert to curves. And you can see then you've got a group. And now you can see you've got a curve here. Curve, curve. So you've got T, Y, P and E. Obviously, if you've got a more complex word, there's going to be more curves obviously associated with that. But it does mean you've also got this. You can go here, use the move tool, or use the node tool if you want to modify the actual shape of the E. But you can see as you move that E, they all move to create, again, different designs. And also you can always, if you want to, add some effects. There's some great effects. Here's like contour tool. So contour tool, just expand, drag that out, and you can create contour design. So you can just make it very thin type. Obviously the others are all untouched. You just applied that to the E. You can, of course, go to the P and do exactly the same. You can just drag that, maybe just resize that. Also, if you want, now you've got this. Let's just go to here. You've got this design here. You can go up here with the move tool selected. You've got the stroke. So you can just click, and I'm just going to just change the colour to black, and also change that, the width. And you can see then you can end up with a width, obviously a stroke applied to width, to that type. Also, you've got here pressure. Let's just see if that works. It does. Yes. Sometimes when I'm doing a live stream, you suddenly think, will it work? Will it won't work? I'm certain it was going to work. So you can see, you can create some interesting sort of slightly different sort of depth or stroke width. I don't think it's as flexible as the width tool in Illustrator, but still it's pretty useful, that pressure feature. And also, if you want, you can also add dashes, etc. You again got these dashes, and you can see as you change it, all the P's change. Also, you'll notice weirdly, you've got here P, the fill colour says red, which is slightly confusing, I must admit. Again, you can then manipulate that. Let's just go down to that B and expand that out. You've got the HS. Oh, that's the reason why. Obviously, the colour. That's always, that is slightly odd when it's, you don't always look, you think, oh. So double click and I can change the colour. So let's just change. So the colour there. And of course, you can always move them. So if you decide you don't want that, you can always delete that if it slightly confuses when you're thinking, oh, what colour is that? But what you can also do, exactly the same as before, you can go and add live filter layers as well. Simply just go to File and again, Edit in Photo and apply. Just quickly go in there, exactly the same structure, all the various things. You can expand this out. You can select the P. Let's just expand out there, select that, go to the Move tool. Don't know why, it always defaults to the Hand tool. Is there some quirky View tool? Sorry, the View tool. Looks like a hand. I always call it Hand tool. View tool. So you've got the View tool, and again, you can drag this out, the D or the P in the case, because it's turned around. It is actually the P. You can go and add, of course, go down here, add effects. So click effects, maybe go for 3D. So 3D, change the radius there, and you can see the radius applied there. Also, outer shadow, just put the radius in the center there and close. But you can also go to Layer and New Live Filter Layers, Distort. Unfortunately, my favorite ones, Deform and Mirror, they still not got as live filter layers. I do not know why. I would love to see that, but however, they haven't. And so you go twirl or any of the others, and again, just change the angle. Now, by default, it always defaults to 0. It's one of the weirdest features, I think, with this tool, live twirl filter. Why doesn't it default to the one you used before? Something like an angle there so you can actually see it and tweak it. Now, at this point, yeah, it does. Now, sometimes what happens, it takes a bit of time to process. You can see it works, then other times it doesn't. Very odd. Yeah, there it is. But sometimes it crops it. Very odd feature. It does seem to take a bit of weird processing power. Also, of course, you can always, if you want to, simply with that one selected, that curve, you can go and convert it into a raster image. Doesn't need to remain as a curve. Of course, it's no longer a vector at that point. So filters, you can always go to blur and maybe motion blur. So you can just apply a motion blur like that to create some lovely blurring effect and click apply. And it just results in a very unusual design like that. Very quick. Sometimes it does do that. I've noticed that it just suddenly goes a bit extreme after you've applied effect. It doesn't always result in the same things you expect. But still, then go to File and Edit in Designer. So you go back into Designer, you've got all the same structure, you've still got the same symbols, and you can then continue to manipulate these designs and move them around and reposition them. You can also move the individual parts, the group. Now also, if you want your design, you can always select all of these symbols, exactly the same as before, all selected. Then you can right click and you can group the entire lot. And you can then move this around, and then you can go to symbols and you can create a symbol. So click there, create, and that's then added as a symbol there. And again, you notice there's sometimes some variation there where bits of it do not seem to get carried through to the symbol. Obviously, there's colour change there. Very odd, quirky feature. But there's all the symbols, there's all the groups. You've still got all the curves. Now you could obviously click back into there and tweak the colours and change them, move them around like that, and manipulate it further, just move position, etc. And that is a run through of some odd features. Please let me know in the comments. What sort of things would you like to see in live streams? Now, this is my first live stream. I'm certain that hopefully over time, I actually did this for an hour without realising that the live stream wasn't even on. So I've gone through this before, and then you realise, that's strange. It would be nice if it actually indicated that. But again, any comments you've got on things, please let me know. It's always great to have some feedback. Maybe the sound quality wasn't up to it. It's always maybe I was too far away from the mic. All those sort of things. Also, there wasn't things that were not explained well. Please let me know, because who knows? There's always something. Anyway, I hope you found this of interest. Bye.